without further ado, please welcome to the Nerd HQ stage, Julie Plec and Gabe Sachs, everybody. Oh, come on in here, darling. Hi, buddy. Get on in there. Oh, it's a showrunner panel. We're going to talk about running shows.
I brought my cocktail.
And you got a cocktail.
That's how I run shows.
This is how we... I believe it.
It's true. And comfortable shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Let's open it up to questions. Oh, would you any opening statement you want to make?
Julie.
He did Freaks and Geeks. That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
That's pretty badass. That's all I got. You guys are gonna have to bring it.
Questions. Who's got a question? Right there. You with the glasses in the aisle. Oh no! Wait for a microphone, because there's people watching at home all over the world that want to hear your voice.
Exactly.
No pressure. Julie, recently you had a sort of long series of tweets about contentiousness between different online. Do you think there's any hope? It just seems so common with couple fans of all kinds of shows. Is there any hope to get people to just like their shows and respect other fans' views?
It's funny that you ask, and sorry, this is gonna go on for a minute.
No, go.
This is my new soapbox, the hot.
Drop some
issue.
knowledge on us. Drop it, Julie.
I've actually, as a result of kind of what I've been seeing online, and stuff, it actually launched with a bunch of stuff getting directed at me, and I was like, hey, this is mean, and then I thought, and I feel like shit, and I really, really don't like this, and then I thought, well, what are these people saying to everybody else, and do they feel like shit like I feel like shit, and it just kind of got me mad, and I started thinking, well, what can I do, and I actually spoke to Twitter. I called them. I dialed 1-800-TWITTER, and I was like, yo, Twitter, what's up? And I had all these ideas of how to mobilize, this voice and say, how can we tell these people who are bullying other people that it's not okay? And their response was let's keep talking about it and let's figure out a way that we can do this, because the double-edged sword of trying to tell a bully that what they're doing is not okay is that you are in fact also validating the bully's behavior.
And encouraging, yeah.
You're encouraging it. And so everybody says, just ignore. And I'm like, yeah, but that pisses me off. It makes me mad to ignore somebody's really disgusting behavior. And so I'm in the process. I actually had an hour-long phone call with a therapist yesterday who specializes in treating kids that have been bullied in cyber. I'm on it. I just haven't figured out the answer, So I think that the takeaway of it all is somehow we have to figure out a way to express ourselves in that fun spirit of debate and in that passion of a fandom with kindness and respect. And I know that sounds really rainbows and puppy dogs and kumbaya, but it's so when you watch people interact with each other, just because one person likes one couple on a show and another person likes another, and people are throwing words around like racist and kill yourself and can I swear here?
Why the fuck not?
Exactly. And fuck off and die to a 12-year-old, It's all because of oh, you don't like that Bonnie and Damon are friends now. Well, you know what? Fuck off, And so I'm sorry that Elena left the show, but don't tell me I'm horrible. There's definitely there's just got to be a way. And look at me, I just bullied my own bulliers by telling them to go fuck themselves.
You showed them.
Clearly, I'm still learning. I don't know. I think that it's an ongoing conversation. I'm actually trying to do what I can about it to come up with a plan and then kind of bring the plan out to the social media universe and hope I don't get laughed off the stage. So, good question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, right down here. Wait for a microphone and go.
Awesome. First off, Thor. Yay, Thor. Just yay. You were in Thor.
Oh, I was in Thor.
Yeah.
You are correct.
So
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm just applauding you being in it. So.
Fantastic. It was just a non sequitur I wasn't expecting, and
Yeah.
thank you.
It was awesome.
My question is for Julie. I love the originals. It's like Sopranos meets Supernatural. It's just amazing. I made my parents watch it. Now we watch it every week together. My question is, if in Magical Land you were to bring over Caroline or Stefan, together or separately, to New Orleans, how do you think they would fit in?
I think it would be hard to make them fit in on a long-term situation until the Vampire Diaries universe was over. I think, Paul Wesley for years has been like, I want to go in the originals. I just want to be in the originals. Like, that show's cool. That show's really cool. I like what you do. Can I go in the originals? So it could happen. You never know. I mean, Paul would then be like, nah, I'm not into that. Oh, did I say I liked it? Yeah, no, I'm not into that. We'll see.
That hand right there. Yes, you. And there's your mic.
My question is, what kind
Please,
of...
please stand up.
Okay.
The real Slim Shady. Thank you.
What kind of advice do you have for young people wanting to get into the film and TV industry as writers or showrunners?
How did you start? What's your story?
I had absolutely no connections whatsoever into the business at all, and I couldn't figure out how everyone was going to these parties in LA. It made me crazy, and I just started shooting homemade pilots. I did with $50. I just get my friends who are actors and writers and just go shoot anything that I could. And one day I went to New York and I begged every company I could find to lend me equipment and insurance and everything I needed, and shot a show, and had so much fun doing it. Went and did another one, wanted to do another one, but I had a manager that represented 3 people, answered his own phone in a closet. I mean, he had no connections either. So, but he tried and he tried and tried, and he finally got through to ABC, and they took it home by accident, this tape of a show, and called me into a meeting and said, we'd like to do this as a summer series. But I had no idea what that meant. I was just like, fantastic. TV's not that hard. Like, I'm going, oh, this was no big deal.
Did they make it?
They made it, but they asked me what the budget was, and the budget was so low, they tried not to laugh in the meeting, which I learned way later. They just said, okay, that's what you want to do with $18. And I went and made the show and did it for summer, and that's how I got in. I mean, I had absolutely no way, couldn't figure it out, and just went and shot stuff. And it still applies today, and now you guys have YouTube, and it's getting something done where you can show someone. And the writing thing is even harder because people are lazy. I mean, reading a script is something that seems like it's the biggest chore ever for some people, and you need to show them your work somehow. So it's keeping at it. And it's also having elephant skin. Like, it is a business where you're told how bad you are and how wrong this thing is over and over again. And to this day, you'll be on a notes call and you just cannot believe the stuff you hear. And Freaks and Geeks all the time. It was why are you making the show? When is the geek and the cheerleader making out? And you just go, well, we didn't grow up like that. Like, we just did. I don't care. When did they make it? And it just, you just sort of went through that trouble all the time.
So you never had to start at the bottom of the staff writer hierarchy?
Oh, no. We never did that. I went out and shot stuff. I was a PA. I did all that stuff, served coffee, got on a set, didn't know anything about it, but just sort of went there. I went to USC Film School, and during film school, I worked as much as I could in the industry, just anything. Yeah. Runner, anything.
That's kind of, it's like, the joke is that the two hardest jobs to get in Hollywood is a bartending job and a writer's assistant position, because the bartending job and the writer's assistant position for actors and writers are the 2 jobs that kind of lead you to a space where you could, as a bartender, meet somebody, catch somebody's eye, serve a drink to an agent who's like, hey, you're cute, you want to be famous? And as a writer's assistant, that is the entree, that you sit, the job exists for you to sit in a room for 12 hours a day and take notes and shut up and don't speak and and just take notes and hope that your willingness to do that without attitude and to be a gentle and a beautiful presence in that room will earn you the right to write a scene now and then, or become buddies with the writers, and then they'll read your script that you've been writing in your free time, which you don't have. And it's a favor-based business in a crazy way. So the barrier to entry in the writing universe is huge. huge.
Absolutely.
Which is why he's right, you know, especially with the digital age stuff now. It's like, just make little, like, that movie, was it Tangerine? Somebody made on their iPhone that's coming out this weekend? Write, make, post, watch, share.
Succeed, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, in the back there.
Hello. Hi. My question is for Julie. There's a lot of really strong feminist writing going on the CW right now, and I was just wondering how you guys on Vampire Diaries and the originals try and incorporate that or keep that on your minds when you're writing your female characters.
Well, I think, you know, we all consider ourselves to be feminists in our own way, and the Vampire Diaries and the originals. We're all a bunch of gloriously independent, fiercely strong, borderline obnoxious women who have a lot of opinions and really believe in making sure that our female characters are strong. And you know, the dialogue that comes up a lot, in especially reference to the Vampire Diaries, is that, you know, you could look at some of the relationships that our ingenues, our heroines, end up in, and call them almost the opposite of feminist relationships and toxic or self-destructive, and you know, and that's a conversation for another day and another panel. But what I really believe in as a woman, and who knows, maybe in 5 years, you know, my opinions will shift as well, is I like women who are flawed. I almost said fucked up, but flawed, you know. I like characters who are flawed. One of my favorite characters on television for the last decade is Meredith Grey, you know? And you meet Meredith, and she's like having sex with some dude she just met at the bar. She's a mess. She's all over the place. She's like practically bipolar. But that woman is one of the coolest, most layered, fascinating, intriguing women on television. And that's what I like. I like women who are like really good at certain things and really bad at other things, because that's what I am. You know, and I think that that's what human beings are, you know? So the idea that, you know, to be a good feminist writer and your female characters can only kick ass and can never be vulnerable and can never be weak or make bad decisions about the men in their lives or anything like that, I just don't find that to be an accurate portrayal of what it is to be a woman in this world. So I tend to like to go for the more, you know, roundabout way of promoting strength and fierceness. What's it like writing for women as a man, trying to be a feminist?
What was that?
I think, you know, we've been very lucky. We've had staffs that are, you know, pretty much 50-50 in the room. And when there's a character that, you know, Jeff and I are working on, we will always bring someone else in. I mean, we're not going to go, we know how to write that character. And we try to have everyone bring stuff from their lives. That's the other thing for starting and writing or producing or anything, is write something. You're going to have a personal story that's going to be different than anyone else's. So you write from that place, and you will create very unique characters. It's something we always go to, is like, well, you know, when you're first starting out, you're chasing what's the trend, and when you meet with networks, they always go, okay, they're looking for blue skies right now. You have no idea what that means, but they're sort of giving you ideas of what they want you to do, and you're chasing it, going, okay, they want to do a wedding show. We got to figure out what's that backdrop that has a wedding, and you realize that you really, the more you just write stuff that you really believe in, and that's sort of from your heart, it just will make everything much, much easier.
Yeah, I think like Amy Schumer sort of in some people's minds stepped in it this week, where she made some off-color joke. I don't know what the joke was. I didn't read the story, but like some people were like, "You go, Amy Schumer. You speak your mind, and you be funny, and comedy is comedy, and like be bold." And other people were like, "You're obnoxious, and you shouldn't speak like that." And the interesting thing about writing is that, you know, the society's language and message shifts generationally. You know, I mean, in my day, you know, when you're 20 and you want to write something funny, you're like, oh, that little slut, you know, and then like now you write slut in any connotation and you're getting killed. And so it's like you're saying like, oh, grandpa, how could you say that? Like now we're grandpa, you know? So it's about writing what you know and writing what you believe in, but also trying to at least have a sensitivity to the sort of the cultural shifts and what people perceive as, inappropriate or hot button issues, just to make sure you accidentally aren't completely offending somebody.
Do you think that people are too sensitive, though?
Well, and I do, but then I also haven't, experienced a lot of the things that people are sensitive about. So then I'm like, well, it's nice for me to sit and say, oh, come on, get over it, stop crying, But if I had been a woman who had been victimized, raped, and anything, and somebody made a rape joke, I'd be like, shut up, like that's not funny, And so I think that it's a little bit of to each their own. If what you are saying is hurtful to someone and is offensive to someone, unless you are an artist, a creator that your brand is to hit those buttons, sometimes I think it's a little bit easier to just to say, hey, look, I don't want to hurt your feelings by what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain topics that I think I always find surprising that people find that they go to the place of joking about, because I'm always like, geez, that's gnarly. But at the same time, I also feel like if this is me getting philosophical on a panel that's not even my own, but I kind of go like, you're always going to find at least one person who gets offended by everything, and then if that's the case, we can't do anything. Because if we're always
Twitter, everybody's offended by everything.
Everything.
I tweeted. Actually, this is a good opportunity. I tweeted out. This is crazy.
Are you sorry?
I'm not sorry at all. And I'm going to use this opportunity to say, because this actually plays into it. I tweeted out when our women's soccer team won the World Cup, I said, so proud of our girls for winning the World Cup. We're represented by such incredible talent and class. And it was and by the way,
it was the girl.
And by the way, and I actually knew when I tweeted it, I was like, I think people are going to have a problem with this. But I was like, I'm not going to give in to that. And I got a whole bunch of tweets back like, they're women, Zach, not girls. Now, I got to say something. If I tweeted out, so proud of our boys, if it was the men's team, and I said, so proud of our boys, I guarantee you, nobody would have tweeted me back and said, they're men, not boys, Zach.
Yeah.
And I go, and by the way, and I also use girls as a term of endearment. It's like girl, darling. There's so many words that we have in our genders that it's not speaking down to somebody. It's like colloquialisms, and it's like how you speak in language. And honestly, like I almost went on a fucking tirade. I was like, let me tell you something. As I'm spitting in the front row, I'm so apologies. It's like a Gallagher show, but instead of watermelon, it's my spit. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, I can't believe that you would be offended, and also I guess there was a part of me that was like, if you follow me on Twitter, you gotta know, like, I'm not a disrespectful person. That's like just a term of endearment or whatever. But people they want to get so sensitive about stuff then I wonder is because they feel like, well, that's my fight. It's like, well, maybe that's not your fight. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm ranting. I'm ranting.
It's funny because I was on a Twitter situation. I follow this this woman who is very, very, very actively involved in like Black Lives Matter and that whole movement. And when Bree took the flag down the other week, she said, "Let it be clear to everyone that it was a Black woman who did this." And I was like, "Yeah, all right." And then like, I swear to God, the next day when they put the poster of the dancer for the American Ballet Company up and said first Black female, head of the American Ballet Company, everyone's like, why do you have to say she's a Black woman? Why can't you just say she's a woman? And I'm like, like I don't know how to navigate that. And that's when you start to feel like, oh God, anything.
Yeah, you're not going to win, right? It feels like, and also you're dealing with. Doing a show, you're dealing with broadcast standards.
Oh, Lord.
So.
No, that you.
Oh, Lord.
So in addition to Twitter and social media and stuff like that, you're also dealing with the people that send you everything you write is wrong. There's something you're saying that you have no idea. And what you do is you overwrite and you write things that you know will get killed and you just see what would happen. And some things they don't get, which is the best. Which is absolutely the best.
We can chop off heads. We can like rip hearts out. We can have like pencils plunged into the neck. But if somebody says "geez," like geez. They like, could you please, we don't like to use Jesus' name in any form, even the short form, so could you please sub out geez? And I'm like, some guy just got a pencil gouged into his eyeball. And that's cool. You're cool with that. Okay. All right. So change the word cheese, I suppose.
You should just use cheese and rice. I know a lot of people use that. Cheese and rice.
Exactly.
I like that.
You know some of these people. Yeah, you used it. Oh, dear Lord. Next question. Yes, right here in the front. Let's run it down. Come on, Brad. Come on. We got it.
Do I have to stand up?
You can stand. You can stand.
Okay, I'll stand. Well, let's switch to a happier note, I guess.
Let's do that.
First off, First off, I love Freaks and Geeks. Like, that was awesome. It was a great show.
Great time with
But I was actually wondering, like, on Vampire Diaries with the whole, like, doppelganger, like, storylines and stuff, like, that would have been super easy to fuck up. Like, with the whole, like, I mean, you have, like, the same people playing, like, 4 different characters, it seemed like all the time. But it actually worked really well, which I was impressed with. So thank you guys for doing such a good one. But I was wondering if it ever got confusing, like, when you were, like, trying to create it, or, like, on set, when you have, like, you're trying to make the same characters, like, okay, go change and be like Catherine now, and okay, hurry back and change. And did that ever get confusing, like, on the set for both you guys and the actors?
No, it was horrible. I mean, it's funny because, like, Catherine Pierce is one of the greatest characters of Vampire Diaries of all time. Quite possibly my favorite character, and the problem is that we burnt out Nina so badly in season 2 because we were just like, what's the big deal? You're playing 2 characters. Like, people do it on soap operas all the time. Get over it. And then we didn't realize it's like, not only is she breaking down her script from 2 separate points of view. So she has, like, the homework that she's doing for Elena. She has the homework that she's doing for Catherine. She's making clear, like, pointed choices for each character. Then she's got to just make physical decisions about how she's going to embody each character, which, come down to, like, the small minutia of thicker eyelashes and, like, a push-up bra, and 3-inch or 6-inch heels or whatever. So in the midst of that, she's then having to make those wardrobe, makeup, hair, physiological body movement, and acting decisions for that every day, all the time. And then on top of all that, there's scenes where she has to actually act against nobody because it's a split screen, or a stand-in who's just got Catherine's wig on, and then do the whole emotion and crying and this and that to a stranger, and then turn around, change her clothes, and do the other side of it to yet another stand-in. I mean, have you ever done that? Have you ever played that's like a twin?
I do it all the time. No, I've always wanted to, though. I've always wanted to. I actually think I don't know, I think it's a really cool challenge. It's really fun. I mean, and then I look at somebody like Tatiana Maslany and I go, she's Louise, like,
amazing.
I can't even.
I guarantee you that girl will take 10 years off from working when that show gets canceled.
Yeah, because she's working for 5 people. How many characters? Not 10. Let's make a decision. How many is that? 9? Do I hear 9? 9. That's what I meant to say when I said 5. Yeah. Do I hear a 9er in there? Yeah, it's crazy. She's working for 9 people. Yeah, but I'd like to. I think it'd be really fun to do that kind of stuff.
I think it's like, as an actor, it's a spectacular challenge. In production, it's difficult because you're kind of shooting things twice, and making like hour-and-a-half makeup changes in the middle of the day. For Nina, I mean, as a storyteller, the bummer was because it was so complicated and so exhausting, we had to kind of like put the brakes on Catherine Pierce for a while, and then ultimately we had to say goodbye to Catherine Pierce, and that's the bummer, As a storyteller, you're like, oh, the best character in the whole world, bah! But there's storytelling, and then there's humanity, and we do torture our actors plenty, and so every now and then you just gotta like be a little bit compassionate to their quality of life.
In the back, in the way back there, I see you.
Hi, Julie. I'm Daphne. I'm fluent from Singapore to see you.
Hey.
Hi. Basically, I'm a huge fan of the Vampire Diaries, and I personally adore the way that you put Elena to rest. It was fantastic. I was also just wondering, like, what was your process for deciding that? And did you have any other ideas about how you wanted to sort of end her character?
No, that was kind of always the girl I was just talking about just left the show after her contract came up, and she's the lead, so you got to write out the lead of your show and be like, hey, we're still going, you know. But it's just fun. So it's super fun.
What next?
It's really easy. It's really easy. But I just knew, like Kevin and I knew how the show would end back in season 2. I've told the story a million times. We sat in the mall and we came up with the ending and we cried in the middle of the mall. And then of course the show like shifted and changed and went on, and then Nina decided to get on with her life, you know, all the power to her. And so everything kind of you have to roll with that as a writer. But from the beginning, like the thing that was the most critical in that was that Elena would not die. You don't, like Elena Gilbert as the beating heart and soul, you know, the root of the show, even if she's not on camera, even if she's not there in the room, is like, you cannot make that girl die. Yeah, she became a vampire, but you know, dead. And so then it just became about, well, how do you take a character out of the playing field, and not kill them? Well, you could send them off to live happily ever after, put them on a bus and say, hey, I'm going to go live in Kansas and I'm going to get a job and I'm going to get a degree and I'm going to live a great life. But where we were with her relationship with the Damon character at the time was there was no way anybody was going to buy that, you know, that she's just like, I'm going to go, I choose me, you know, like it just wasn't going to happen. And to force that and to say, forget everything about, like, not just the Damon relationship, the love triangle and her friendship with everybody. She's just gonna go start a new life, you know? Just couldn't do it. And so the solution we came up with was, we had different versions of it. We call it the Sleeping Beauty spell, you know, for lack of anything more original. But that felt right. It felt poetic. It felt fairy tale-esque. It felt sweet and sad and it keeps her alive in our universe and keeps something for, like, you know, the Damon character to hope for, but also lets our characters move on and live their lives and not have to spend like this, you know, next year and a half of their show lives mourning the loss of this person. They can, at her wish, get on with their lives and be happy. So we felt good about it. I know a lot of people loved it, and I know some people are just still pissed, but you know, that's okay. We'll all move forward.
You're right over there.
So I'm gonna take a different direction very quickly. Indulge me. Just kind of a personal question. So as writers, finding your voice usually comes from being avid readers. And I know at this point in your life probably don't have a lot of time for that. But I was wondering what you guys actually like to read and what other type of voices in like television or film that you really enjoy outside of what you actually do.
It's such a great question, but it's you know, especially with television, you know, it's a lot of cable. You know, it's you know, the Breaking Bad, the Game of Thrones, you know, all those shows that you want to sort of learn from. You follow, also often you follow like great writers that you enjoy, you know, features as well. It's sort of just finding those personal voices, because those are the shows that really stick, and they, you know, you just, it's fascinating. Like, it's really, you know, great. Book-wise, it's so hard. You're like reading books usually for projects, you know, for films or something like that, but we just don't, you know, I heard the whole thing with Albuquerque.
Oh, I don't think they were.
Yeah.
Was anybody here in the last panel?
Oh, yeah.
A few of you.
Oh,
One of you, really.
We shoot in Albuquerque, so I was there for 8 months, and but reading it's become harder. Like I read we're doing a project, and I just read a book, and I was, you know, amazed I was sitting down and reading a book. It's so refreshing.
Every time I open a book, I want to actually like weep tears of joy, because you get so busy, and you know, especially doing 22, you know, you don't read books when you're doing 22 episodes of television, when you're at least running 22 episodes of television, until you get a vacation. And by the time you get to that point, when you get your vacation, your brain is dead. You are empty. You can't find a word. You cannot speak a word that has more than 3 syllables. You forget that like the English language fills the dictionary that wide, and you reverted to like the 10 words that you remember. As a writer, you get stale. Like I always say, like I have no words left in my brain. I have no ideas left in my head, and I need to go get inspired and stimulated by somebody else's work. So for me specifically, I read a shit ton of YA. Really good YA, like Karina McKenzie's here. She's a staff writer or a story editor on the originals, and she is one of my go-to young adult suggesters, like Jandy Nelson, and that's how I found out about John Green and all his books. And The Hunger Games back in the day, I'm pretty sure came from her. So, excuse me, I read a lot of that, and then on TV, I'm like you, like. Anything that I look at, I'm like, I could never do that. That is so good. Like The Leftovers.
Always, absolutely. You're just going, wow.
Yeah.
Like just.
Mr. Robot, I just started. I'm obsessed with Mr. Robot because I'm like, I could never write Mr. Robot. There's nothing about it that I could do, and therefore I can stare at this team in awe and just be so thrilled by it.
And you're also reading so much. I mean, you're reading scripts. We're rewriting scripts. You're sort of doing that, and by the time you sit down with the book, you're just like, oh, I get to read a book, and then you're out. You're asleep in 2 seconds. This is the greatest thing ever.
I will say, though, if I'm going to give a shout-out to good fiction, anything by Jonathan Franzen, anything. I think he's only written, actually, 2 books, but both of them.
Those 2.
And The Goldfinch by is Don Tart. The Goldfinch is spectacular, absolutely spectacular. And it's a very deep, fancy book, and yet has this strange, almost young adult kind of flavor to it that makes it magnificent. So read that.
Right here. Straight down here. Oh, he's running. It's coming.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
My question is about Demon. Now that Elena's out of the picture, are we going to see him go back to his badass ways?
Remember how we started this day talking about like Twitter can get really mean and people can get really mad at me? Now, Damon is going to be committed to the next 60 years of his life, like he did with Catherine. He's going to say, I'm going to hold out. I'm going to wait for my girl. He is going to be very temperamental as a result and will, in his great Damon ways, have his ups and his downs and his hilarious incidents and his not so hilarious incidents. He's a guy who lost the love of his life, so who's committed to waiting for her. So imagine that, and that'll evolve over, upcoming seasons as well. Like, what does that mean? How do you define that? But I think Ian certainly will have a lot more fun this year too, being bad.
At this point, how much is the network getting involved?
The network
I'm always curious with the lead character and.
Every year I think, oh, this is going to be the year that's so easy, right? It's like, last year it was like season 6, like, stop calling me, And then the first 3 scripts of last year, they were like, well, we have all these questions and all these issues. I'm like, shut up, like, stop asking them. It'll be fine. Like, it's going to be fine, And this year, because it's Nina's year, the first year without Nina, everybody's on the notes calls, like, just making sure it's going to work out. And so it's always that first, 3 or 4 episodes, you're like, we got this. It's fine. And then it just becomes about, reset and logic and, and character wants and drives and that sort of, checklist kind of development stuff. But
Right. I mean, and you have to understand that the majority of people that are telling you and giving you these notes have never held a camera, have never told a story, never written a short story. I mean, some have produced, but it's sort of you're continually convincing them that it's going to be okay. That's sort of, it's going to work out.
And it becomes a thing about trust, I mean, I'm now on my 4th show for this network, but 3rd that's on the air at the same time. And they gave me a note the other day, and I said, I'm going to disagree with, I never disagree. I'm actually one of the nicest note receivers in all of Hollywood. But I'm like, I got to disagree. And I said, and you guys might be right, but I see this so clearly that you have to let me get it wrong and then realize it's wrong. Like, you can't force me out of this. Like, I really, really, really believe in what we're doing here. And if I look at it and I realize, oh, God, you were right, I will fix it. you know, because I will know that I made a mistake, but I know how to fix things too. So you got to back off. And they were like, we trust you. Like, go, do it. And I was like, really? But that's, at its most effective, that's the most symbiotic a relationship can be between creatives and their bosses. It's just hard to get there.
And you also, I mean, on top of all of that, you know, you get things like, I don't know about his hair.
Oh, Lord.
You know what? That color, that's just not going to work. And they will go on. There were some shows that the network president said that that the door handles on the kitchen were not right, which had nothing to do with the story. But that was a note. And you ask, well, where'd that come from? They go, look, it came from high up. That's all we can tell you.
High up.
High up.
But were they right?
They were right. They were really shitty
They
door
were
handles.
shitty door handles, guys.
I didn't say they weren't right.
What's it like, Zach? Okay, so I go through this with actors all the time, and that like their fundamental complaint is they can smell in their minds. They think they can smell where a note is coming from. So if you're an actor and can you tell?
Here it comes.
How can you tell?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know that I can smell where a note comes from. I did work with a great director named Patrick Norris, and I don't know if you guys have ever worked with Patrick Norris before, but he did quite a few episodes of Chuck, and he had one of the greatest methods. I shouldn't be outing him right now, but I think it's fantastic, and it's also very respectful. But he would come up to us and. Because as a director in television, is actually it can be kind of a thankless job. It's a very difficult job because you don't really get a lot of creative voice.
Listening to us.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. Television is a writer's medium, and you guys are running the show, and directors are coming in kind of episode per episode, and you're kind of a guest, but you're also supposed to kind of be the boss in a way, but you're also going and directing a bunch of actors who, depending on when you've jumped into a show, we may be doing the show already for 3 years. We know our characters, we know our beats, we know our relationships, and so, and by the way, a lot of shows also kind of have an aesthetic that's already been set up. Like, we don't use Steadicam, we use a lot of lock-offs, we use So then, as a director, you go, well, what exactly is the hell? What am I doing? What kind of print? What kind of print?
DGA.
Yeah, you're DGA, and you're kind of a crossing guard in some respects. So it can be a very difficult job being a television director. But Patrick would come up to us, and we really dug him. He's a great director, and if he had a note, he briefed us on this method early on. He said, if I have a note, I'll come to you and I'll just say, hey, I'd really love for you to try it this way or that way or whatever. But if I come up to you and say, the note is, then you'll know that it's not my note, but it's from elsewhere. And you don't know if that's the writers or if that's an executive or whatever, but then at least you know that, because you can get into a little tug of war with your director and be like, that doesn't feel right to me. And he's like, the note is, and you go, okay, this is not, it's not our fight. This is not our argument. So that helped, at least in that regard. But knowing when a note comes down from a studio or a network, that's...
But maybe when there's like 3 pages of exposition, you probably get the idea.
Yeah, but also some writers, but also some writers I feel have been conditioned to do exactly what the networks and studios have wanted. They have. It's a very tricky balance, and you hopefully are working with executives on both the network and studio level that have creative intuition and also allow writers to create. I mean, it's always been one of the most fascinating things, and I'm sure you guys feel this all the time. And I learned this on the very first show I ever did. I was doing a sitcom. I did this show called Less Than Perfect, and right, and with a sitcom, you have a live audience, and you basically rehearse all week long, and then you have a shoot night, and so you have literally a studio run through of the whole show, and you run through the whole show, and you do all the scenes, and then they go have a note session. And the next day you have a network run through, and they give all the notes, and they change it. And I always found it fascinating because during rehearsal, I mean, we would have jokes that
slayed. They were so funny, but you're also very nervous as an actor when you have all like your top bosses. There's no audience, by the way. They are the audience. There's about 10 of them, and they're not sitting up in the audience. They're standing right at the edge of the like the line of where the actual proscenium of the stage is, and they're doing this.
And you also have to remember, by that time, what Zach's talking about, the crew has heard these jokes, so they're not going to laugh for a 12th time.
Yeah.
So now the executives are watching and going,
Yeah,
that didn't land.
Exactly, that didn't land. Yeah, that's the note. But it could be a great joke, right? And then you get these notes that come down, but we all know, the writers know it's funny, we actors know it's funny, maybe it just was a little off in that rehearsal. It's basically still kind of a rehearsal. But then it gets killed, and it gets replaced oftentimes with something that's not nearly as funny, and then I would constantly think to myself, because I would also talk to a lot of writers, and I know that when you guys get a deal with a network or a studio, there's a big like, oh my God, we love you. You're great, we love your work. We love your work, we love your voice, we love your vision.
You can do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want. And then so then
that will never happen.
You get brought in, you're like, oh, they like me. They like, as an artist, you're like, oh, somebody likes me, they like me. And then you get brought in, and they're like, and you go and write your thing, and they go, oh, that's great. Okay, here's what's wrong with it.
Page one.
Page one, and then you go, well, wait a minute, like, if you believed in me so much, why don't you believe in me now? And if you can write so well that you're gonna rewrite my script, why didn't you write it? Or why am I writing it? And that can be a very tricky thing. But also executives, they have a lot of other things that they're dealing with. There's this
20 other shows.
Yeah, and all the other shows, and trying to figure all that stuff out. This is a very deep conversation, by the way, and I hope all my bosses at NBC are very happy with my performance.
Well, we're not talking about NBC. We never talk about NBC.
NBC's perfect. Everyone's perfect. No, but I'll tell you,
Everyone's
it's funny
perfect. Everyone's great.
Because I had an
Rainbows and
actor
puppy
say to
dogs.
me once, he's like, I can smell, and I know you have all these masters to serve at the network and the studio, so I know that that's why this scene sucks. And I was like, no, actually, I wrote the scene. I'm perfectly happy with it. Yes, I have masters to serve, but I am not going to be their, excuse my language again, I'm not going to be their bitch and just put words on the page. We as writers, we challenge ourselves to say, okay, well, if the studio and the network had a note, then they had a bump. They had something for a reason. The reason for their bump might not make any sense. Their solution for it rarely makes any sense, but you're reading a book and you're like, I didn't really like that page, I don't know why, but whatever. So I say, somebody had a note, figure out what's wrong and let's try to fix it. So I like to pride myself on not having it reek of having been an address network note, and I get bummed when somebody thinks it was, because to me it's a game.
But it's also
sky's the
weeding
solution.
through.
Yes.
It's like on our show, you get a ton of notes, and you say, I'll look at that, I'll look at that, I'll look at that, I'll look at that. And then they leave you get it, and you go shoot your show, and a lot of it is different when you're shooting because things don't work. And but it's a lot of that, going and sifting through those notes to find out what did they really feel? What was that moment that sort of bumped them? Because it's never clear.
And how are you servicing the love triangle in this episode? And I'm like, I can't think of one more thing that will service this love triangle. I can't. I'm out of ideas for this fucking love triangle. I can't service the love triangle in this episode. Please don't make me, And that's when it's just funny. That's when it can have a negative impact, because then you service the love triangle, and then all of a sudden the fans are like, we're tired of the love triangle, and you're like, thank you.
We got time for one more. I'm going to go with this gentleman back here. We've had a lot of female questions. I feel like
Hooters.
I like
maleness.
I like a male voice coming.
Man in the
coming
Hooters hat. Yeah.
Thank you. Freaks and Geeks was a really edgy show at the time, and I was wondering, as writers, were you ever able to, or did you want to put material into an episode, but during the time it really wasn't appropriate?
Well, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it. They were not crazy about the show at the time. They kept moving us around every night. It was ridiculous. They couldn't.
Wait, you guys did 13 episodes?
We did 18 altogether.
18 altogether in one season?
Yeah.
And they moved you around within the season?
Yeah. And they also took, they also banned an episode because it was too controversial.
Oh my God.
Which was our third episode, which which made no sense. It was crazy because Lindsay and Kim Kelly did not get along in episode 2, and we had to skip to 4 when they're best friends. So it was like just one of these. So they banned the episode. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm totally going off track, and you can ignore my question until you're done answering his, but like, I think about this with my so-called life all the time, because that was one of my favorite shows. You made a show that was 18 episodes. The network was basically like, yeah, we don't like you. Go do something else. Or like, that's terrible, that's terrible. And now, what is it, like 15 years later, 13 years later, and it is known as one of not only the most beloved sort of like cult followed shows on television, but also launched the career of a tremendous amount of very, very successful and talented people. Like, talk about that for a minute.
Well, yeah. They
and do you get residuals on their now success?
It's so funny, and you run into, and everyone's still the same. Like, you're just the same personalities and stuff like that. They were not. So just to show you how that wasn't just that moment. Then we went and did Just Shoot Me, and then we did Undeclared, and we came back to do Undeclared, and they didn't want. Judd was dealing with, getting Jason Segel in the cast, and they didn't. We're not going to have it. They said, absolutely not. It was hard enough to get Seth in. And it was always, I just don't know. Judd was always figuring, like, how do we break Seth? How do we break Seth? How do we do it? And he'd go into network meetings, and they were just like, I don't like his voice. That guy's not going to make it. I don't think this is not worth it. I don't know what we're having this conversation about. And then Judd, they figure out Knocked Up. So he goes and Knocked Up, and that same network is like, we need a Seth Rogen project. How do we get a Seth Rogen? The same people who said that, and Seth said to me, don't they know I'm the same guy they hated last year? Like it was, just nonstop. So that was, you didn't get any, they didn't realize any of that. But material getting in there we always had a problem. And what Judd's solution was, and I was always taking those calls. So it was, I would get a call on our script, and it was when the geeks were talking about, look, we know everything, we tell each other everything, and, remember the time I, sneaked out a fart and came out a poop, and the network went crazy. And they said, absolutely not. And I like, Judd, I don't know what to do. And Judd goes, give him this one. You remember when I cut the cheese and More Than Cheese came out? The network goes, go back to the original.
Did you guys all feel like when you were doing it, did you feel like you were like, oh, we're such failures, we've made a stupid show?
Thought
we know?
First of all, I never wanted to leave the set. I mean, we just wanted to be there all the time. And that was our lives. And we just were having such a good time. And when we felt it was going down, and so we kept figuring out, when are we going to shoot the finale? So we shot the finale 3 episodes before the actual ending of the show.
Why?
Just so we had it in case.
Oh.
So we were so sure it was going down, and hopefully all this video, I have all the behind the scenes and stills from the show that I shot, but that moment where Judd and Paul had to tell everyone that said, we may come back. But as Linda Cardellini, there's tears pouring down everyone's faces. But it was just one of those things. Like everyone, we all had a great time, and we just wanted it to last forever. It was one of those things. So you're always looking for stuff to do together.
Oh my God, I love that. And when Chuck ended, were there tears, or was there like, see it, get the hell out of my face? No, nobody's listening. Nobody's watching.
You know me too well. It was a shit show of tears. It was bad, but it was beautiful. Are there Chuck fans here? So a couple. It was. God, we did 5 seasons, 5 super intense seasons. Where the first season we were shooting like 18-hour days, and honestly, I almost drove to Canada I think the writer's strike, no shit, I think the writer's strike saved my life because I didn't know how, I'd never done a schedule like that before. And we got cut at 13 episodes that first season. But I remember hearing a story about.
Dessert.
What's that?
You were gonna dessert.
Well, I was a zombie.
sorry, I'm
I
in
was literally
Canada.
like, I was losing my mind. I had no sleep. And we would, because of turnarounds, like we would end up walking off the soundstage on Saturday morning at like 8 in the morning. And I don't know, it was super intense. I just say all that to say it was very, very intense. And the schedule got a little bit better, but again, it was still very intense. And when you're working under those conditions, and we had such a great family, and it was, I don't know, it was very, very special. It was very magical. And part of the reason why it was so special and magical was because of you guys. I mean, you fought for us. You fought so hard. You ate a shit ton of Subway sandwiches. Even the gluten intolerant were with us. And that was, I don't know, it's like, you can't, I don't know, I sometimes fear that I'll never do another show as special because it was that special. So by the time we got to the end of it, and I was saying my goodbyes to everybody in those last, because we knew I was literally saying goodbye to them, and I was really crying, and it was really hard, but.
That pilot, do you remember that pilot? Yeah. That pilot was one of the best pilots. I remember because we've known each other a long time.
We have known each other a long time.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time, and I saw that pilot, and I was like, this kills. Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I was just like,
I actually auditioned for Undeclared. I did.
Right.
And you didn't hire me, so thanks.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gabe Sachs and Julie Plec!